All right, I'm going to start. So welcome to everyone who's here so far. I'm Jade from the Rural Farming Trust. Now and then we put on a webinar because someone's doing something really brilliant or interesting that we think is worth showing. I know Adam, because we're doing a little bit of work on a project called Landed Kitchens, which is about pairing community kitchens with agroecological farms, which is funded by Farming the Future. Real Farming Trust has only got a tiny part in that project, and Matt is due to come. We can tell you much more. So Adam's involved in that project. And also because we're just starting a really big piece of work, £5 million piece of work over 5 years, that's about using food to build community, and particularly marginalised communities where food access is an issue. And each of the partners in that project, the delivery partners, is going to do some work to try and do some participatory democracy and understand what issues there are on the ground that matter to those communities. So People's Assemblies is one of the models they might like to use. And apart from that, there's all kinds of other people here who are also really interesting and really welcome. I'd like to hear from that. So the main piece of work is funded by the National Artists Community Fund. And there are several people here from that partnership who can introduce themselves as we go along. So I think we have got time before we hear from Adam, which is going to be the interesting bit, for people to just briefly say hello. If you just go as popcorn whenever you like, don't feel like you need to speak if you feel a bit shy and don't want to, but if you do want to, it'd be really lovely if you would say hello, and if you've got a reason why you've come, something you're particularly interested in. I'll cut you off if you say more than 2 or 3 sentences, because we want to get on to Adam and leave plenty of time for him. So does anyone want to go first and say hello and say why they're here?
I don't mind kicking us off, Jade.
Thanks, Ben.
Hello, everybody. So my name's Ben Hall, and work at a homelessness charity in Edinburgh called the Cyrenians, and we're one of the delivery partners in the Extended Table project, and just working to connect vulnerable groups that we support with healthy eating on a budget, and trying to change the system, the way that they can access food security.
Thanks, Ben. Anyone else want to say hello? By the way, I'm not going to share your email addresses, so if you do want to share your email address, just put it in the chat so other people can track you down when you're interesting. Anyone else want to say hello?
Hi there. I'm Wendy. I'm Wendy McGee. I'm the Skills Development Manager working on the partnership Extended Table. We are going to be delivering into schools in Northern Ireland, heading towards systematic change using advocacy, food and digital media. So lovely. I've met you there last week, Jade. So yes, thank you. Looking forward to working with everyone.
Anyone else want to say hello?
Yeah, sure. I'll say hello. I'm Alexa. Hello, hi there. I've been working with farmers, but I'm interested in the wider food system, obviously, as well, particularly in participative approaches. And so just really interested to hear about how People Assemblies have worked in practice.
I'll follow on from that because it's related. So I'm Bonnie Houston. I work for Farming the Future, which is a participatory pooled fund that supports systems change in UK farming. But I'm more here in a personal capacity of just being really interested in community power and wanting to hear more about how this works in practice and how it could be applied, and maybe how it relates to how we do movement building in our work as well.
I'm happy to jump in. My name's Alex Britton-Zondani. I'm a freelance food systems consultant, so I work on a few different projects, do quite a few projects with Food Matters, who some people know of, I know. So yeah, again, similar, just really interested in a personal capacity. I do a lot of facilitation work and a lot of work with food systems. So really interested to hear more about the approach.
Anybody else want to say hello?
Hi, it's Miranda from Stroud, part of a fledgling group of people who are coming together around food and food justice and trying to connect different parts of the food system together. We're very early stages, but we're part of Gloucestershire, and some interesting work has been happening in the Forest of Dean. So we're just trying to learn from lots of different places. And looking at People's Assemblies as a possible method and approach to get people together.
Thanks, Miranda. Anyone else?
I don't mind. Jess from Brighton and Hove Food Partnership. We're also part of Extended Table. We run a cookery school and community gardens amongst many, many other food related projects. So yeah, just looking forward to finding out more.
Is that it? Anyone else want to go?
I'll say hello.
Oh, you were just in time, Maddie. Hello, Maddie.
Last minute. Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie Longhurst. I work with the Urban Agriculture Consortium. Working with Adam and Jade and others on a program around landed community kitchens funded by Farming the Future. So really interested just to hear what's alive in our partners, worlds and the way that they operate, and also really interested in just, the wider application of these kind of social sort of democratic technologies, and particularly also personally around a community-led housing, in the field of community-led housing that I'm part of as well. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Maddie's the person when you get into your small groups if you're lucky to be in a group with her, she can tell you more about the Landed Kitchens project. That'd be good. Does anybody else want to say hello before we introduce Adam? Okay, that's good timing. So we're going to have Adam speaking for roughly 20 minutes, and there'll be time for whole group questions and answers to Adam. Then you'll have maybe 10 or 15 minutes in small groups, so you can talk about your experience already of trying to run processes like this or related processes in your own communities or what you're interested in. And then we'll just come back briefly and close at 2 o'clock. Whilst Adam's speaking, I'm going to put some things in the chat which you might want to have a look at. One is a guide. Okay, I just stumbled across it, a guide written for in Wales by people who did a People's Assembly there, and it's a very practical, simple how-to guide. So I'll stick that in the chat. I'll put how to sign up for the mailing list, because the Real Farming Trust puts on webinars like this now and then, or produces bits of information now and then. If you sign up for the mailing list, you'll see when one's coming up. And I'll also put a link to our website where we've put recordings of previous webinars and guides and so on topics that probably interest you. So now finally, forgive it, I'm going to hand over to Adam. So Adam works in Hull. When he was talking about his work, I was just really excited because it was both visionary and extremely practical and realistic, and really engaging in social situations which are not easy to work in. I just thought it was really interesting and innovative. I'm really pleased that he's made time. He's super busy. It's really nice that he's made time to come and tell us what he's been doing. So he's going to talk to us about Corporation Hull and the work they're doing, in particular about People's Assemblies. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Jade. Hi, everyone. Yeah, like Jade said, I'm Adam. I'm lots of things. I'm a teacher. I ride a bike as part of a co-op. I'm a baker, but primarily in recent years, I see myself mostly as an activist. And I'm part of Corporation Hull, and I'm really proud to say I am. I'm going to try and give you a little overview of what Corporation Hull is, but it's quite difficult because it's quite a unique organisation. It's been going for a couple of years now, and I'm not brilliant at doing presentations. So if you need to stop me and ask questions, please do. But my job is difficult because it's a complicated thing. It's very alive, it's very moving. But I'm going to tell you as much as I can about our experience of running People's Assemblies, which is the main focus of today. But I'll also try and link some of the other things that we've been doing as well. Right, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, great stuff. So yeah, so I'm gonna start. I'll show you what the agenda of the 20 minutes is. So I'm going to talk to you about what a People's Assembly is and how they differ from Citizens Assemblies. I'm going to answer the question, why Hull? Why here? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've learned from doing them. And I'm going to give you a very whistle-stop tour of how to run one, brackets, but just begin. A lot of what we've found is it's very context-based and situational situationally different. So my main encouragement is to just begin. You will learn by doing these things. There is, yes, planning is important, but ultimately being there and doing them is the best way to learn. And we've got time for some questions, and then, as Jade mentioned, we'll go into some small group chats. So what is a People's Assembly? So, just to say, I did say I wasn't a very good presenter, but the PowerPoint is largely for me. It's a prompt for me. There are some bits on there that can be useful, but it's a prompt for me. So a People's Assembly for us is about participatory democracy, which is a word that's thrown around a lot, but to me it means actively taking part in the decisions that govern your life, not representative. And I think my interest in this started from a feeling that representative democracy was neither representative nor democratic. And what we were told is our democracy isn't functioning, and that we need something radically different. A People's Assembly is about listening, and about really listening. And I have put the name of John Keats, the poet, in brackets here to remind me about. He has a phrase called negative capabilities, and I think it's been a theme in the assemblies we've held, is that to really know what people want, and you have to be really patient, that it's hard. And I think I often find myself in webinars or rooms in real life with people who are confident in articulating what they want, and I'm grouping you all in here despite not knowing you, are rarer than we think, and that for a lot of people it's really difficult, and it takes time, and they're rarely given it. So we try and cultivate this idea of being negative space, and we'll talk a little bit more about facilitation later, but listening is really at the heart of a People's Assembly. It's in real life. I could talk a lot about social media and the ways in which it divides us, but I'm sure you're familiar with it. We think that in real life something different happens. It's where magic happens. Assemblies they are truly magical when they're done well. I think the things like culture wars and ways in which we vehemently disagree and shout at each other on the internet, they dissolve when we sit in a room together, face to face, and talk about what's happening to us in our physical localities. And we've got countless examples of that being true. Yeah, the other thing about a People's Assembly is facilitation. Conversation is really difficult, and you have to have a dedicated role of somebody whose job isn't to be part of that conversation, isn't to share their opinions or react to others' opinions, but to facilitate. And that is I think probably the biggest lesson is that, to do it well, you have to really learn how to be a really good facilitator. And I've watched some fantastic facilitators who are capable of quietening the overly strong voices in a polite way, and encouraging those that are more reticent to speak. And then the other thing about a People's Assembly is it should have practical outcomes. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Why assemblies? There's so many reasons for this, and I've listed a few, and these are very hot takes, so please don't take them as representative necessarily of all of Corporation Whole, but we think that our politics is utterly broken, and right now we're staring down the barrel of a Nigel Farage government and all that may bring. We need to learn to organise, or you can fill in your own blanks. Our social landscape and physical spaces have diminished, and with it our connection and conversation. In short, we are farther from each other. Tinkering is useful in places. There are lots of things our institutions can do to build a better world, but if you don't think we need a revolution now, we don't think you're paying attention. We need to learn to sit in the discomfort more often, together. I have a quote here from Callie Akuno, who I'll talk about in a minute from Cooperation Jackson. We found that people find it easier to act their way into new ways of thinking than to think their ways into new ways of acting or being in the world. So we think assemblies are good because they start doing. Okay. I have a couple of examples. So this is a poster for an event we ran in HU3, which I'll touch. So HU3 is a postcode in Hull. And we have a set of ground rules, which I would like to tell you a little bit about. So the three main things we ask people to do is to really listen carefully, and we try not to patronize, but we do want to instill that does mean there is a difference between that and waiting to speak, and about being forgiving and allowing people to make mistakes, to be curious and to really pay attention to each other. About respect, we have a set of hand signals which are taken from British Sign Language. They're very simple, but they encourage a discourse and a way of talking that is really necessary if we're going to have a deliberative process that really involves everybody. Hand symbols are pretty simple. You put your finger up if you want to speak and you join the stack. The facilitator's job is to keep track of who that is. If you want to agree with somebody, you can do that silently with the British Sign Language for applause, just one hand or two, without interrupting the speaker. You can also disagree. We tend not to introduce that one so quickly. Yeah, and you can put your hand up with a C for if you're lost, if you need some clarification. And this final one is look for what we have in common, that we're trying to focus on the issues, not the person. And I think that, yeah, in that we've realized that, yeah, I think I said this before, but when people meet face to face and they talk about their neighborhoods and their realities, all of the noise disappears. I'll briefly tell an anecdote about this previous slide, actually. So this photograph, this is the back of my head, and here I am I'm a participant in this group. This is an assembly from HU3. And as I sat down, there was a conversation had already started about the conspiracy theory 15-minute cities. If you're not familiar with this, it's the idea that the government is going to keep us all in zones and that it's already happening. And I sat down and my heart sank a little bit, and I thought, this is going to be really difficult. Like, we've got a few people around this table who are really deep in rabbit holes. And what happened was totally the opposite. We asked the two questions we posed in that assembly were, what unites us and what divides us? And we put the emphasis on Hull and in our neighborhoods. And what happened was that all of that conspiracy theory, culture war noise goes, and people have to talk about it from the perspective of their house on their street in their neighborhood with their neighbors. And what broke out was a really inspiring conversation that I still think about a lot today. Yeah, the key differences between people's assemblies and citizens' assemblies. I don't think this is super important, but I think people's assemblies, they're open, they are self-organized, and they're mainly grassroots bottom-up. Citizens' assemblies, on the other hand, are randomly selected and usually brought about by an institution or the state in some way. Both have merit and value. We're primarily interested in people's assemblies and about building power in separation from the state. And I've made a note again for myself about sortition. So I'd been in quite a lot of assembly spaces before Cooperation Hull that were very much the usual suspects, and like, you know, people like me, white and middle class and reasonably privileged, talking about what to do in the world, and access to the room was, yeah, it was hard to get into that room. So I think sortition is a way of trying to make sure that you are representative. It's difficult and it's expensive sometimes to do that well, but yeah, but definitely worth mentioning. Okay. Okay, so why organize a People's Assembly in Hull? So Hull, so the core people who started Cooperation Hull were a group of former activists in the climate movement who were disillusioned with the strategy of forcing the government to act, and it failed. It wasn't without success, but they had a yeah, I think a correct feeling that it wasn't quite doing what they wanted it to. And the need for community-based organising that directly meet people's needs, and very much inspired by Cooperation Jackson and Danes, or Rojava as you may know it, which I'll talk about in a second. So Cooperation Jackson is based in Jackson, Mississippi. They've been running for quite a lot of years, and they have a regular assembly process with a surrounding solidarity economy, a community land trust, and several cooperative businesses that support the decision making of an assembly. So this is an example of a living system where assemblies are at the heart. Another example is Rojava in northeastern Syria, which is, if you don't know about it, I strongly urge you to find out. It's an underreported news story, but it's quite incredible what several million people are doing in northeastern Syria, living in a stateless region, surrounded by enemies on all sides. I think what they are is they're genuinely grassroots. They are a set of persecuted peoples doing things in really extreme situations, and I don't want to be pessimistic about our future, but I think it's in face of adversity that I think is why these two are so inspiring, and I think why they are the sort of things we need to be looking to. Yeah, and I think the assemblies are an enormous part of why they're successful. They really, it's hard. Like consultation has become a bit of a dirty word, and is often done by institutions in a really tokenistic way. And I think truly well organized assembly process is the opposite of that. Why Hull specifically? So I think that there were 6 people that moved here full time and gave up a lot of potential privilege and chose to commit themselves full time to this project for a few years. And there were multiple cities to choose from. I think the reason they landed on Hull is the climate reality is very real in Hull. There are some conservative flood estimates for the not too distant future, and Hull, it does not look good. There are vast swathes of Hull that, without significant action, will be underwater. Disenfranchised population. I have mixed feelings about that phrase, but we have a very low voter turnout, and I think there is opportunity in that as well as a sadness. A lot of the people that started this were, well, at least 3 of them were originally from London, where doing anything and building any sort of community power is limited by the excessive land pricing in London, and it's felt that in areas such as Hull, there is more possibility because there is less vested commercial interest here. As such, land is cheaper. And also another reason is there was a connection already to the solidarity economy of Hull. So we've got an amazing housing organisation in Hull called Gyroscope. We've got a couple of cooperatives, including one that I work at, a delivery cooperative. And yeah, so I think there were already connections there. But there's no compelling reason why it worked here in Hull and wouldn't work anywhere else. I think assemblies have the potential to work everywhere in multiple contexts. There was a real bold ambition that this was, I guess, we saw assemblies as tactic, as part of something bigger. And I think I mentioned Cooperation Jackson using assemblies to essentially inform what the surrounding apparatus does. So cooperative businesses that respond to an assembly process, a community land trust that responds to the decisions made within an assembly process. But we initially settled on 4 pillars: the movement from party politics to local democracy, from a failing economy to a solidarity economy, from a planet in crisis to a healthy Earth, from a divided society to strong communities. We were quite unapologetically bold and somewhat naive in and how quickly we thought we might bring these things about, but the learning process has been incredible. Right, I'm hoping this is where Felix, I have uploaded this to YouTube and this is a different video, so I'm going to hope that the audio plays, but if it doesn't, Felix, do you want to tell people how to turn their captions on?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's give it a go, and then if not, I can show people how to do captions.
Okay. Okay.
And I know that often it can feel like the odds are stacked against us, that there's precious little hope and nothing much we can do but roll with the punches, or worse, that we're encouraged to direct our blame and anger for our predicaments.
Okay, Adam, I think it's quite hard to hear. We might need captions.
Migrants,
Okay.
trans people.
I tell you what, I'm conscious of time.
Yeah.
So I will just, yeah, I think we will just leave that.
Okay, so you could maybe share it afterwards.
Yeah, I could do actually. Yeah. So that I'll tell you that. So that is Catherine, and Catherine is speaking at an event we ran, and she's talking about what it feels like to be part of Corporation Hull, and I think I will cover it in I'll cover it in other slides. Okay. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've done since 2023. So we've run postcode assemblies in all 9 Hull postcodes, and we did outreach for those, invited people, booked a venue, held assemblies without any particular outcome. The idea was just to get out, talk to people, introduce people to the idea of assemblies. We ran assemblies on election day, at the last general election, outside or nearby to polling stations, to provoke and to kind of tap into that sense of apathy that a lot of people were holding their nose and voting or not voting at all. We run some practical assemblies, and that was specifically with a practical outcome in mind. So trying to create a community-led project that would start out of a deliberative decision-making process. Further down that list is Waffle, which is the photograph. So Waffle is a community restaurant that pops up every Tuesday in a space called the Lonsdale Community Centre. It's entirely volunteer-led and has received no funding. It came out of an assembly. So we took an idea that food and gathering was important, but that was it, amongst many other ideas. And through facilitated conversations, we did 3 assemblies, and out of the back of that, Waffle is now nearly 2 years old, runs pretty much every Tuesday, and serves between 50 and 80 people every week. There is a community radio show that you can just about see happening in the background. It's probably best summed up as the maddest living room you've been in. It's a lot of donated and curated bits and bobs. But what it's hard to sum up what's happening in Waffle or to really describe it with any justice, because off the back of that, it's become a sort of impromptu assembly space that people just, I don't know, through going through that process have started to self-organize themselves and will actively break out into groups and discussions and use meeting rooms, and it is spiraling off into lots of other projects, including Power Hull, which have put solar panels onto this community centre, reducing its energy bills dramatically, and have started an energy club. Powerhull.org if you want to know anything more about them. It's quite an incredible thing that's happened. One of Corporation Hull's team is now permanently in Rojava, learning from the Kurds in northeastern Syria. And finally, we have something we call crew assembly, and it's kind of what Corporation Hull has morphed into more than anything else. It's twice a month, between 20 and 50 people meet once a month for the purpose of education and learning together, and once a month to have an assembly together about what projects we're working on, ways in which we can help each other. Yes. Okay. Okay, so these are some of the findings we've had. So talking for the sake of it is only so good, but it is good that having an assembly just to chat and to talk and to air views and to get a feeling for what people are thinking, they're good in and of themselves. But we really want to encourage self-organizing and to try and work towards practical outcomes. So we are all meeting in this room. It's hard to bring that energy. It's hard to gather it. You have to do a lot of work and a lot of outreach and connect with lots of groups. Once you've built it, you want it to go somewhere. Yeah, that meet people's needs, that ultimately the hardest people to reach are hard to reach because they're busy meeting their basic needs. If you can go some way to doing that to help them get there, you're starting well. Yeah, low-hanging fruit is good, but some struggle is needed. What I mean by that is that there are people who are just naturally interested in being in these spaces, and that's great, and you want them in the spaces, but they can dominate and dictate what a space looks like before some other people have got in there. And what I mean is, I guess there are some people who are very skeptical, are very socially isolated, and don't believe in democracy at all. And I would say don't waste hours and hours and hours trying to get them in the room. But some struggle, you need to move some people who find it difficult to get in there. Make it fun. It seems obvious, but they are beautiful things. Yeah, they do feel magical. And if you can, yeah, if you can keep it fun, you'll be pleased to know that food is key. For so many reasons. It meets people's practical needs on that evening for a start. Free food is a good invitation, but more than that, it really brings a sense of togetherness, that sharing. People and it goes for things other than food as well, but doing things physically, doing things with your hands and body helps to kind of take people away from this worry that they often have, which is, oh God, I'm in this room and I'm going to be asked to speak, and it can be really intimidating. Yeah, don't shy away from saying it like it is. Our problems are big and we shouldn't pretend they're not. I think this is really important when you're framing your question. I think we've certainly tried not to be patronizing in any way, but I think we definitely realize that people much prefer it when you are honest and frank about the issues that you're trying to solve. Yeah, facilitation is absolutely key. Please don't assume you're good at it because it's hard. And don't assume you don't need facilitating. We're, even the most self-aware of us are not always brilliant at not dominating a conversation. It's sometimes really difficult to be globally aware of a group of people. Yeah, if you do intend to use this process at all, facilitation, learning as much as you can about that is the number one takeaway. And finally, and this is the bit that is really, really hard. And I'll give you a couple of examples, but we sum it up as accept racists, but not racism. If you want if you want an assembly to be genuinely democratic, it has to involve people that you vehemently disagree with. And there are lots of them, and we have had lots of them in our assemblies. It's a fine line between accepting people who are inherently racist, and many other ways in which, but yeah, yeah, we don't tolerate racism. If people are openly racist in assembly spaces, we move to de-escalate, or we will ask them to leave in certain situations. It's happened very rarely, but I think a lot of the reasons for an alarming shift to the right in global politics is because of a lack of welcome and a lack of acceptance for people who currently hold views that many of us would find odious or fiercely disagree with. If we can't talk to these people, then they are lost to us, and we know who will find them and who will mobilize them. And I think assemblies are slow work and it is hard, but they are a really important tool in combating the rise of authoritarianism and of fascism. We've got to come together and we have to talk face to face, and that's hard but worthwhile. Okay, so I mean, I'll give you this practical guide. I got a feeling from the welcome that you weren't necessarily at the stage of being ready to organize one. So I'll do this quickly, but how to essentially, venue is key. We made the mistake of deciding we were going to organize by postcode in the beginning, and it wasn't really a good fit. I think figure out where in your community people naturally congregate, where they organize. Postcodes are arbitrary lines drawn on maps. Don't use them. Build links with the existing users of the space. It's hard to reach people, but people will always feel comfortable if they're going to a place that they know. It's on their turf, so to speak. Timings are difficult. You will always exclude people. You will always find that that some people can't make it. But weekday evenings, weekends are best. 3 hours for an assembly is enough. Follow up. Yeah, I think this is important. So you spend a lot of time getting people in a room, and we got 80 people in a room in St. Matthew's Church, HU3, and it was amazing. And conversations were happening all over the place about how we might make our neighborhood better. And then you build it all, and if you don't have somewhere to go next, you build it all and it just dissipates and it disappears. And I think we can all relate to that, having kind of come to events and got that sense of hope and then watching that dissipate. So I think having somewhere to go afterwards to allow it to flourish is important. Outreach is a tricky puzzle. Make it targeted. Stores are really good if your area is suspicious. Hull it is suspicious. Its people are suspicious. They're reticent to engage sometimes. So I think stalls allow people to kind of hang around the edges and see if they're interested, and then come up to talk to you if they want to. Door knocking is really difficult. If you're going to go door knocking to try and get people to an assembly, just strap in for a lot of rejection. But when you don't, it can be incredible and you make some really good connections. But yeah, the best thing to do is to find where people already are, find where they're already gathering, and connect with those organizations if you can. Yeah, designing the question is important. You want something that's open enough for people to fill in what's in their hearts and share what's real for them. You can frame a problem first and ask what we can do about it to help. You can definitely get into some meatier conversations that way. Or you can start with what's strong, what's happening here. And that's difficult because you want to kind of prompt people to think bit more systematically and collectively. One good way is to imagine infinite resources, to try and get people out of the head of what's possible and what isn't, to kind of set a scene of, okay, imagine you can do what you want, what would you do? It's a really good starting point because you get a lot of positive energy in the room. And then a little bit of practical tips for on the day. Yeah, have a welcome desk. Everyone will walk into an assembly feeling unsure. It's a new space, it's a new thing, it feels pressured. My partner has been following me do this work for quite a while and was still incredibly nervous when she first went to an assembly. Take numbers and contacts of people. Have spare people. You will need people spare without a role who could de-escalate, who can welcome latecomers, etc. Have a creche. Yeah, try and, if you want parents there, try and help them to engage in the process and yeah, and get testimonials. As I'm no doubt proving, assemblies are difficult to explain well, and I think the best people to do it are people who just walked out of an assembly. They're brilliant at it, and they are difficult. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I'm probably heavily over time, but anyway, I'm going to conclude. I'm really proud to be part of this organization. It's amazing in so many ways. It's really hard. It's slow. The best way to learn about assemblies is to run one. You just start, just begin. But most of all, do it with joy, and yeah, and people will bring theirs too. I did say to Jade, sorry, that I'm not the best presenter. Thank you for your patience, and I'll hand back. Thank you.
I don't think I agree with you, Adam, just on that final point only. I thought you did a very nice presentation because it was inspiring and practical at the same time, just very realistic, I think. Yeah. And did feel accessible, felt like something you could have a go at, and you could see why too as well. I think what we're going to do is go straight into small groups, and then we'll come back together at 5-2, Felix, if you wouldn't mind. So if you've got questions, keep hold of them. You might, if you're lucky, get them answered in a small group. And we'll come back right at the end to say thank you to Adam, and we'll have 5 minutes for any outstanding questions at that point. In the chat, if you scroll up, you'll find a practical guide that I mentioned earlier from Cardiff of how to do a people's assembly. And there's a few other useful links there as well, including one from Matty. So Felix is going to put us into small groups now of about 5 people each. We'll come back at 5-2. I'm not going to be too directive about what you do in your small groups. I think what would be useful to do is talk about whether you've tried any form of participatory democracy already. In particular, of course, if you've tried anything like this, anything like a people's assembly, or if you're intending to try something like this, what you're thinking about and how you're getting on with it. So I'll quickly type that in the chat whilst Felix gets us organised. He's going to put us into small groups and he's going to bring us back at 5-2. So the main questions you could think about are, have you tried anything like this? So how did it go? Or are you planning to? Welcome back, everybody. Well, I think only one group's back. So we don't have many people back, including Adam's not back. Maybe you'll have to close the small groups, Felix, to make them come back.
Yeah.
Obviously having a good chat.
We got 10 seconds and then that'll be kicked
out. Okay. All right. We had a very good little group. That was just really interesting. We could have easily had a whole laugh. Ben and Jess, you probably realise this, but an extended table, we don't have to do people's assemblies, but we're written in to do some kind of participatory democracy in those communities, and most of us have to do it in a wider community. So there's work to do, sort of integrating our usual clients more generally.
I find it very appealing to build into it, and I'll talk to Sue about how she feels about it. But I think to build something around food, an event that's geographically relevant and then about food, I think is probably quite important.
All right, we've got everyone back now, and we're going to stop at 2, so we don't have very long. We've got 5 minutes for burning questions to Adam. So if you've got something succinct, and particularly something you think is relevant to everyone, then just call out. You don't need to put your hand up. If you've got a question, just call it out.
I have a question for Adam. Adam, thank you very much for that. I find it very inspiring. I suppose it's about guidance in the facilitation, about the scale of the proposition or the problem that you described. Like, do you have advice or guidance about limiting the scope or limiting the description of the problem? Is it easier and better to have the big overarching problem, or to become very much more focused?
I think it very much depends on what you're seeking to get out of the assembly. Like we wanted to talk big and to inspire people to do something in addition to what they were already doing. We wanted them to commit, and lots of them have. We've got 40 people meeting regularly that are part of the crew, we would call them, that have taken a decision to spend some portion of their lives trying to make things happen separately from the state, I suppose. But yeah, I think if you're coming at this from the perspective of farming or food or some specific issue, then how you frame it, yeah, I think I would think about very clearly about what you want to get out of it. But I would encourage you, if you're caught between two options, to go with the broader question. I think allowing people room to express what's really going on for them, and we talked about a little bit in our breakout group, the idea that a little bit randomness and a little bit of losing control a little bit is important. And I think, yeah, otherwise it starts to feel like a consultation questionnaire. You're just sort of guiding people through a process that you've already determined. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it does, Adam. Thank you. That was a really lovely answer, a good answer. We've got time for one more voice question before we say thank you and goodbye. If anybody else, oh, Miranda, you're in there. I saw your hand.
So I was just thinking to build that muscle around the approach and the model, because obviously if you've never done this before in communities, it's better to start with maybe a fun topic, or at least a topic that isn't maybe the big topic that you really want to talk about, but it's more about practicing the art of the method. And I just wondered, would you recommend that rather than really trying to pin all your hopes on the first one? And then maybe for whatever reason, it doesn't work in the way just because it's your first one. So would you recommend starting with just easy questions to get people into the spirit of it?
Yeah, I would say the first one, it isn't going to work in the way you want it to. And I think you're right about practicing the muscle. We don't have, I don't know about the specific areas you're from, but generally in the UK, we don't have a rich culture of this. In Corporation Jackson, one of the inspirations, they had a long history. Malcolm X grassroots movement used assemblies a lot. So everybody knew what they were. So they were building on something concrete. We, thank you, Maggie Thatcher, have got a very atomized individual society. So we're very unused to this. So I think I would caution a little bit against easy questions. I think people want to be challenged. They want it to be real. But yes, I would say, but also I think just be honest about the fact that we don't exactly know what we're doing, and we don't know ways in which this is going to go, but we believe that conversation is a key part of solving these problems, and we have to learn to do it. We have to relearn to do it. We have to get better at it. Yeah, I think I think being quite frank about it and not trying to make it this big sort of this is the answer. You know, no, we have problems, we have questions. Let's sit in the discomfort and get on with it. Or that's what we're going to try and do. I think.
And I think, sorry, just on to in response to that, I think that what unites us and what divides us is probably a really good one to start. So it's, I mean, probably all over the country, but certainly from Gloucestershire perspective, we've got lots of protests outside hotels, and it's going beyond the counter protest, which is just a reaction to there. It's about getting people together in their communities to try and start having those conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we better start. I'm quite interested to chat on for another hour or two, but it's 2 o'clock and I promise we finished at 2. So I really want to thank Adam. I totally disagree with your comment about being not very strong as a presenter, but I agreed with everything else you said and I felt inspired and encouraged by it. So I just really want to thank you. I know you had 2 years and it was really been news to Clara to do that for us. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
So I'm not going to press to click shut the call until you've all had time to scroll back up the chat, and you'll see there's a link to where when we get around to it, we're going to post a recording of the webinar so you can share it with other people if you want to. So I'm going to shut the call in about a minute from now, or Felix, you can do that. That's time to get whatever you want out of the chat. There's a few contacts in there as well. You might want to have a little rummage around, see if there's anybody you want to keep hold of.